All right, well, come on down this way, Chuck. We are going into the bowels of the home. Everybody has it, right? Everybody's got that storage room. Maybe your basement's finished, maybe it's not. There's always that area that isn't, and that's a great place for you to get an inside look at what's happening. So we're just going to go explore and see what we find. Hold your breath. All right, so one of the things I'm going to share with some of the things I've already learned from Chuck. So he said that drain can be a nasty place, all right, because you got your air conditioner running and condensation is going down there, and that's a great place to grow mold. Yes. It's dark, it's damp, it's got water. So what he has me do is once a month I keep a jug of bleach right by the drain, and Chuck taught me once a month just pour a little bleach down there, and all we're trying to do is reduce the mold count.
Correct.
Anything else about that we need to think about?
Pretty much there's not else you can do to it. I mean, a lot of people are allergic to the VOCs of certain gases and chemicals you put in. You could try vinegar, you could put down into there. Some people like lemon juice. Something that's just going to slow down the growth or try to kill the growth. One thing is here that a lot of people, when they look at bleach will work on substance like this, but you do not use bleach on drywall, anything porous, wood. That will actually increase mold growth. You can get a little bit more in depth with it, but I just make it quick and short. No bleach on anything porous.
Yeah.
Here is a good part.
It's a good time to point out something, because if I'm a homeowner, I'm thinking, all right, so there's mold down there. Who cares? I don't live down there. Right. And it isn't the mold. It isn't that mold's going to jump out of there and grab a hold of you and eat you.
Right.
But the mold is going to make spores and endotoxins, and they're going to aerosolize. They're going to go into the air. And if there's enough of it coming out of there, and you're going to talk about ductworks, it's the fact that mold is growing and it's kicking out endotoxins that you then breathe in.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So we're just trying to reduce the amount of areas where the mold can grow.
Correct.
So that's one area.
That's definitely.
We're going to get later the tools. This is a dehumidifier. Most dehumidifiers these days come with a nice hygrometer built in.
Correct.
And you can dial in what humidity you want. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but I'm just pointing it out because it's here, and it drains continuously right into that thing. This is, I love my builder, Steve Snicky. You're awesome. My builder, though, when we built this house, he said, you should put in a humidifying system. So in the winter, you know how in the winter everything gets dry and your hair gets staticky, keep your humidity up. So we installed this thing called an April Air. It's a humidifier. Now I want to point out, look at the tube coming off this thing. This is designed to put humidity into your air, and that tube looks disgusting. Now what do we think is in there if this thing is designed to produce moisture, right? It comes down and it drains into that drain. So Chuck comes through and he goes, I don't know if you really want to do that. And what's interesting, I talked to my builder about this, because you told me keep your humidity below 50%.
It's 60%.
And being the extremist that I am, I try to keep it below 45.
Yeah,
and I told my builder about that, and he goes, oh man, all your wood's going to crack and the panels are going to separate. And we've done this now for a couple years, and it hasn't. There's been no change in my woodwork and my doors, but we keep our humidity below 45%. I don't want any chance of mold growing, and we've disconnected this. We don't use this anymore. I probably need to get rid of this tube. And you had said the fact that it's there, it's not a great thing, but it's probably not enough. There's no movement.
Correct.
So it's not creating
and it
a problem.
depends on what type of mold is in there too, and what type of food source that it's actually feeding off of.
But that's been sitting there for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And so I just learned about this a year ago when Chuck came through. So that's the April Air. Talk a little bit about ductwork and furnaces and potential there.
Okay, one thing about the ductwork you have to understand, other than cooling and heating your home, is that it also filters your home. Notice that you did good here with the furnace filters. Let's pull your filters out here. This is one of the biggest air filtration systems that you have. I don't know if I'm allowed to advertise this, but I always recommend you got it's a MERV 11. That shows the thickness of the weave that's happening in your furnace filter. A lot of heating and air guys say you don't need this, again, because it's going to restrict the airflow. I like bringing it down. You can get away with a MERV 8 as long as it's meant to get micron size mold spores or particulates, at least 5 to 3 microns or smaller. That is one of the biggest, most important things you have in your home.
So you can get this at Home Depot, and what he's reporting towards that MERV rating. I can't remember the exact cost of this. If they're expensive, they're $8, right? If they're cheap, you can go to Home Depot and get a filter for $1. but it's not going to be a MERV 11. So you want to look for that rating, and all we're trying to do is it's going to be a finer filtration system to pull out the microparticles.
Correct.
And that's what you want your furnace system to do, your filter system to do. Okay.
And definitely inspect it once a month, because since it is a tighter MERV, it is going to gather more particulates that's floating through the air. So it is going to restrict the airflow. It's going to stop the air from coming into your return, which takes the dirty air compared to what's feeding into the clean air.
And gee, if you changed it out every 3 months, you would spend a whole $50 a year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
It's
so
well worth it.
definitely
Well
worth it. All right, so the ductwork itself, you want to go over to the corner?
Yeah, we'll go over to the corner. We'll
Okay.
run it through here where you change. A lot of times through the return, it's going to take moisture as itself, as you can see where some of the condensation marks is on the side, so you know there is a moisture temperature difference, moisture into the air. Also, when you're coming through where the air is coming in, especially once you have your air conditioner coming on. We'll go over on this side over here. Where the air conditioner is on, what's running through your air duct, the AC itself is really high in humidity. So that's why I'm a big believer in having the air ducts clean. One thing I definitely recommend you guys doing is taking a camera, looking down your ducts, take a picture at least once a year.
Yeah,
just to see
you
what's
said that
happening.
was easy. Just take your iPhone and
Yeah.
open up the ductwork, shove your hand in there, and get a shot.
Correct, and hold on to your camera. Hold on to your phone. I've lost a couple down ducts before, took them apart, not fun. This is one of the areas I definitely look at all the time. As you can see up inside the cavity itself, it is restricted in airflow compared to the natural part of the basement. Where the ductwork itself is running, coming off the ductwork, you're going to get a temperature difference, let alone possible humidity, because a lot of your seals are not sealed. So you can have some cold air coming through here, high humidity, and I do find a lot of mold growth, which we do not have any here today, inside the ductwork itself, along the sides of the joists.
Well, the first
itself,
time
too.
you came into my basement, I was surprised, but you did find some mold growing
Yes.
on my rafters. And we think of mold as being low, in puddles, it's wet, and it's not.
No.
It was up in the joists,
Right.
and we didn't even see it. You found it. We got it corrected.
Correct, correct. And what caused your mold problem was high humidity. And
Yeah.
one thing that would start it, and this is one thing that I'm a big believer in, I guess we could walk this way here. You do have a little bit of obstacles in your
Yes, I
basement here.
do.
But one thing I do believe
Go,
in
George,
here
go.
is that with the lack of airflow, you can have, in this part of the basement, you don't have a lot of traffic.
Right.
So you have a lot of dust buildup.
Yeah.
You can get mold growth on dust. They state that relative humidity needs to be below 60%, like in your living airspace. But in areas like this, I like it low as possible, where it's still comfortable to you, at least 50% or not lower. Because I do not think, from what I've seen through my experience in this, is that mold can form on dust, especially aspergillus types of mold, cladosporium types of mold. And some of these are a lot of people are allergic to. And it doesn't take that much moisture or humidity to
And they're
start on
very
it.
toxic, especially if you're getting daily occurrences. I have invested a fortune in box fans, probably $20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are like $10 at Walmart. These are simple. Everybody sees these everywhere. And what Chuck taught me early on was just keep the air moving. If you keep the air moving and you get the humidity down, you've eliminated a great amount of risk.
Yes,
Have you not?
most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely.
So we keep this running down here all the time. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
That's not a problem. But it's also keeping the air moving, but you also have to be moving around dry air. That's where the dehumidifier comes into place. A lot of my clients say, come in with a mold issue, and they say they went through the steps because they had a water damage, and they put fans down on it. If that humidity's high, all they're doing is moving around wet air. So you have to keep the dehumidifier inside the basement. It's always good to have it in a central location. If it's in a corner, all you're doing is drying
Right.
out the air in a
Right.
corner. Central location such as this is perfect.
What do you think about people, like we have this enclosed shower, Beth and I have, that's kind of a walk-in shower. There's not a lot of air movement. It's not the classic door or shower curtain. It tends to stay moist in there after a shower. Would just moving air be enough to eradicate the potential for mold growth within your bathroom and
itself.
shower?
Well, that's where the exhaust fans come into place, because it's actually going to take the moisture out
Yeah.
of that area.
Okay.
And you
Okay.
also have to make sure through an inspection is to make sure that that exhaust fan is going out the house instead of just running up into your attic or into the floor joist.
Okay. So let's look at this area over here, because I got a potential problem, and I am concerned about it. I wanted your opinion on it. So for those of you that know me, I love filtered water, and so I have this wonderful filtration system. This is a Vitus Salis whole house water filtration system. I love it. My water tastes awesome. Takes out fluoride. It takes out all kind of chemicals and chlorine. But unfortunately, one of my tanks is just a hair leak down here. And so if you look, you see that black stuff, right? And
More light on
there
that.
you go, put a little more light on it. And so you see it's leaking a little bit of moisture. So obviously my mold radar goes off and I go, holy crap, I got a problem. That box fan that I just showed you, I keep it blowing on there all the time so that it stays dry and I keep the humidity low. And today, Chuck, you're here and I asked you, getting a free consult.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
No, that wouldn't be a problem itself. The only problem that it would be if it's actually getting a food source wet. If you had a cardboard box sitting here, something like that, then that could be a potential problem. But here,
Okay.
it's not getting a food source wet.
So if I just hit it with bleach and keep it dry as best I can, it's not going to create a big problem. Talk about boxes, because everybody stores cardboard
Correct.
boxes in their
Correct.
basement, right?
Correct.
And so-
yeah,
That's the food.
yeah, that's most definitely. Then also with a lot of boxes too, and again, you don't know where the boxes came from the factory, even if the boxes are left in the back end of a truck.
Yeah.
A potential food source itself. One of the things I've noticed on a lot of boxes, if there's not potential water damage where you see the box is all wrinkled up in that, it's a big cladosporium issue.
Yeah.
I always recommend tubs. Put it in plastic tubs itself, protects it from any type of water damage, will help with moisture, and again, it's not a food source itself. Boxes on the floor, what we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
how the cement has the capillaries.
Yep.
That's potential of having mold growth underneath. You'll
Yeah.
never know it. When it sits for a long time, then you can start dealing in with the black mold, which is Stachybotrys, and that's where everybody's extremely scared of.
Yeah.
But to get a Stachybotrys growth in your home, you have to have a pretty good amount of water because that has to have a heavy amount of water.
So different
Correct.
molds need different amounts
Most
of hydration
definitely.
or water. And let's just dispel that myth. Everybody thinks that mold is always black and hairy
Yeah,
and
no,
obvious,
no, not at all,
right?
not at all.
You showed me a form of mold that can look like wood shavings
Yes.
along a 2x4 at your foundation.
Yes. Yeah. Again, it's the moisture content. Like I said, humidity is one of the big thing, and one of the most common molds, like we said earlier, is Aspergillus. But you got to understand with Aspergillus, there's different strands of these molds. One of the nasty ones is Aspergillus niger. That is one of those that they use the toxins and actually biological weapons.
Okay, nice.
So that's really nice, and everybody's really scared because again, once they did scientific tests on the types of molds and what affects you,
Yeah.
some of the worst is Stachybotrys, where they say it could be a carcinogen. But again, I'm one of those firm believers, you're not going to breathe Stachybotrys every time unless you have a serious issue in your
Gotcha.
house. But we're exposed to Aspergillus all the time.
So there's all kinds of other
Yeah.
molds that can create lesser effects, but still toxic effects.
Correct.
And when Chuck came through the first time, we had a fair amount of tubs. We were really good. We came down here and we got rid of boxes and we got more tubs. And then time passes and boxes bleed into your life. So we're going to come through after this visit and clean up our boxes once again and get back to the plastic tubs.
Yes.
It's just part of life, man. But do the best you can.
Yeah.
Life isn't perfect,
It
but
happens.
keep working at it.
But it's also keeping an eye. The main thing is that people, they'll get on the web and it scares them to death because a lot of the advertisement things you see on the web is a lot of remediation companies.
Yeah.
Are trying to scare the heck out of you.
Yeah.
The thing is that as long as you keep it dry, that is the fix.
Yeah.
The UV lights, the other stuff, I'm not a believer in it because what you're breathing is the spore itself. Alive, dead, or dormant, the mold spore still carries a toxin.
Yeah.
So it's filtration. That's the furnace filter. You've got to have the furnace filter in there. We have the IQ Air, which you like
Let's
a
go
lot
upstairs.
too.
Let's go
Yeah.
talk about some of those things. Before we leave the basement, I want to point out one last thing. We don't have a crawl space here, but a lot of people do. Tell me this, because this is my radar.
Yes.
If I'm talking to somebody, do you have mold? No, we don't have mold. We're fine. Yeah, but you got a number of your family members are all getting sick, and I've got a suspicion, and I'll ask this question. Does your house have a crawl space? Yeah. You got mold.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that you have mold, but if you have a crawl space, what are the odds of that being properly ventilated and dehydrated? But what are the odds of it growing mold of an adverse nature?
It's perfect atmosphere, perfect conditions to have mold growth. Vapor barriers is a must-have down in the basement or in a crawl space itself. But it's also one of those areas that you just don't look at all the time.
Right.
One thing that I always stress to my clients, like we showed around the outside of the house, you have to at least do once or twice a year just to inspect, look down into the crawl space. Sometimes after a heavy rain, look.
Is there
down into
something there?
Because again, dark, dank, moist areas, perfect atmosphere for mold
And
growth.
here's the fear from a homeowner's perspective. Oh my gosh, if I have it inspected and they find a problem, it's going to be a $10,000 remediation. To fix a crawl space issue, I know there's highs and lows.
Correct.
Give me an idea of what's classically involved. Not terribly expensive, or?
It can be. It
Okay.
really depends on the area. Again, in Ohio, there's no guidelines on pricing. So I always recommend get as many estimates as possible. I have 3 companies with I refer. They know exactly what I expect. I get the best price for my client through these 3 estimates.
And you definitely want to have the same person that's testing doing the remediation, right?
No. Always have a third party.
That was a softball joke.
Yeah, that was a good one there.
You want separation, as I say, separation of
correct.
church and
Independent
state.
testing.
You want the tester not being the remediator. Because what I love about what you do is you hold them responsible.
Yes,
if they come in and do the remediation, he's going to come back and test their work. And if it isn't up to par, guess what? They're going to redo it.
Yeah, and
right?
I have no problem on speaking my mind.
Yeah.
Which you can ask some of the remediation companies out there.
Yeah. So good stuff. We're gonna go upstairs and sit down and just talk about a few more things. We'll talk about some of the tools, the HEPA filters and so forth, and then wrap up any questions. Okay. So, I want to wrap up, but I want to go through some action steps you can take right now. I want to go through. All right, so you got mold or you don't have mold. What does it feel like? Because nobody thinks they have mold, and a lot of people do. So let's talk about some of the physicality of this. The way that I met Chuck, and I refer patients to Chuck to get their homes inspected, because think about your neurologic system and your immune system and your gut. Remember, the gut is 70% of your immune system, and it and the brain are absolutely tied together. When you're breathing in these endotoxins, you're living in your beautiful home, but there's mold and it gets in the AC, and people go, I've heard this, yeah, I got mold in the basement, I can see it, but we don't go in the basement very often. Okay. But your HVAC system is sucking that air in and blowing it through your home, and it's just circulating, right? It's
Yes, most definitely.
So, putting a HEPA filter in your home, we're going to talk about some of the tools. But how do people feel? So, gut, brain. So, I feel foggy headed, I can't focus, my memory is poor, my sleep is disturbed, my headaches are such that I have trouble focusing and functioning at work. I have gut issues, I have diarrhea, or I have my bowels just don't feel good. My immune system is weakened. We found out that we had a little bit of mold, and interestingly, when you found that mold, it was right under my son's bedroom. I don't know if Beth goes, that's the reason. I don't know if that's the reason, but he always, of everybody in the house, he gets colds and flus more. Every time I turn around, he's snorting and sniffling and has got a cold. We cleaned that up. His symptoms were less frequent. So those are some of the symptoms. Other things, musculoskeletal, muscle pain, joint pain. I feel weak. My stamina is poor. You have to remember, this is an endotoxin. It gets in your body, and it is toxic to your endocrine system, your joints, your brain, your gut. It can be very pervasive. People report blurred vision. We actually do a VCS test, a visual contrast test, in our office. And we can get pretty good reliance if you have an endotoxin exposure, because that test will often turn it up. Okay, so recognize if you're dealing with IBS or migraines or immune issues or any of this stuff, joint pain, it could be mold biotoxin in the background and you just haven't picked up on it. All right,
Yep.
So that becomes very, very important. Let's talk about some of the tools that we use. You want to speak to this little guy right here.
Yes, the hydrometer.
Okay.
This is one of the main tools that I recommend through the house. Central located, get a couple on different floors. I've noticed through the years that women are more sensitive to temperatures, smells, so on and so forth.
Yes, they are, because they're delicate flowers and we love you.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if you look at that daily, you'll pretty much be able to tell. You'll sense it.
You can look at that number and notice how you feel.
You'll know what it is.
I want to point out one thing. This is just from my own personal experience. By the way, I have no financial ties to anything talked about today. The filters, none of this. I'm just giving this out as information. I went online, I went on Amazon, and I bought 2 hygrometers. One was $10 and one was $50. And guess what? They both work the same.
Yep,
And I compared them side by side.
Yep.
There wasn't any difference.
Yep.
So I wouldn't spend $50, I'd spend $10.
Yep.
We have one upstairs and we have one downstairs, and in fact, our dehumidifiers, most dehumidifiers now will have one built in. And the dehumidifier goes for what? $100, $120
$100, yeah.
for a good one?
Yeah.
So it's not a terrible expense. Talk about what you told me to get, and that I love that we have, the Pro Health IQ Air.
Yes.
Okay, it's IQ Air. Talk about that filter.
One thing that I do mention on this is filtration. That's the most important thing to have in your home. Some of these things, ozone, ionizers, the UV lights, they can work what they say, whether they're going to kill the mold spore or going to stop the growth that can happen. The thing is that A mold spore, again, live, dead, or dormant, still can carry a toxin to it, so it's filtration. So I'm a firm believer on filtration. The IQ Air system itself, again, is something that I actually stumbled across during testing time when I did do a post-test after a remediation company, and it should have failed. By all measures and everything I saw, it should have failed. The one thing it didn't fail. And again, when I was testing air quality and I did a little bit more research, found out they had an IQ Air system, and it was actually the whole house system that was on. It was during the winter time.
I came over here because this filter, it's got a remote control. It's really kind of cool. And it's running right now. And that's the biggest thing I wanted to share. I tell patients all the time, you can run this sucker all night long. Put it in your bedroom. If you've got allergy issues, I got patients that just have environmental allergens. Put it in your bedroom, run it all night long. So it has different speed settings, 1 to 6. Right now it's at 1. And I can't remember the manufacturer's guidelines, but even at a 1, it'll recirculate all the air in the room once an hour or even more.
Yes.
But that's at a setting of 1. You can't even hear it. Let's go, and it got a remote control. I'm going to go to 2 and 3. And yes, there's a little more air movement. But when you set this thing, when I first got it at a 3 or a 4, I think it recirculates all the air in the room 5 or 6 times in an hour. Yes. That is huge. And the other big thing is, everybody can go and get a HEPA filter. I can go to Walmart and get a HEPA filter. Talk about the filters and how small it can filtrate. Because I think I read 0.003 microns, yes. That's what you need to do to get rid of mold.
Yes, most definitely. Some of the smallest molds is Aspergillus, actually.
Okay.
One thing about the IQ Air, if you look at a lot of the other air filtration systems they got tabletops. Gravity is part of human nature, so you get a lot of stuff down in your carpet. Your carpet holds everything.
Yeah.
This is the area that takes all the dirty air to it. This is where all the clean air comes out. Actually, when I checked this out before, when I first started really getting into it, I used to have a particulate counter. 0 particulates come out of the top. Huge, huge improvement on air quality.
Okay.
When you said about changing the air quality or changing the air actually 4 to 5 times, 6 times per hour, during a remediation, as doing a demo, that is their goal, is to change the air 4 to 6 times an hour during the whole remediation. And these units are huge, the size of washing machines.
Well, and this sucker, I mean, it's not real heavy and it's on wheels. So we'll run it in the bedroom at night, but then I'll put it in the middle of the living room because I can just wheel it out to the living room because it's not heavy. And it'll clean 1,200 square feet, right?
Most definitely.
I mean, okay. So, I mean, it cleans a good amount of area, 4 or 5 rooms, depending on the size of your home.
Right.
So,
and I've had even a couple of my clients said they got the IQ Air and it wasn't really too happy with them. The one thing I always tell them is that where's the location? They put it right by their bed. Well, it's like having a picnic. You don't have your bug zapper over top of your picnic table. You have it away, so it's actually drawing away from certain areas. So a good central location is perfect for these.
Anyhow, again, we don't sell these. We don't make any money off them, but it's a good product. That's about $800 for that sucker, right? Not cheap. No. But the filters, when they get full, the device lets you know, and you can replace them. We've had these at least a couple of years, and based on how many hours you can run the fan, we estimated these are going to last anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on how often you run them. So it can vary, but again, when you look at the overall cost versus the length of time you're getting benefit, it's fairly inexpensive. So Chuck Billingsley, he will come to your home and he will do an inspection for $89. That is darn cheap. I've known Chuck for a few years now, and you've been through a couple of different models. His current model for $89 will come to your house, and I'll tell you what's valuable about this to me. The experience that he has, he'll look at your home and he'll tell you, what I love about what you've done for my patients is you'll tell them, hey, it's low, medium, or high.
Correct.
I've had you tell my patients, yeah, you got a mold problem, but it's not that big a deal. And some of this you can clean up yourself and it's not a big deal. Yeah. Everybody's afraid of somebody coming in and telling them it's going to be a $10,000 cleanup. Correct. And you have been wonderful about helping my patients save money. At least get the experienced eyeball on your house and see if you have a problem. If it's there, you want to treat it. And if you need to treat it, you're going to give them a good recommendation. But it's only $89 to bring you into my house and get an idea from an expert if I've got an issue or not.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then you've got a lot of companies you work with that you have vetted that they do good work, and you're going to come back and you're going to check their work.
Yes.
Right? And that's what's really key. So again, The name of your company there, Chuck, what did you, Thorough Check.
Thorough Check. Some say Thorough Chuck, but Thorough Check.
Thorough Chuck coming into a home inspection. This is a lot more common than a lot of people believe. I was really excited to do this because I have a really great answer for mold issues. I lecture to physicians every week. I have phone calls with people from coast to coast, integrative docs, and they want to know what to do with mold. And I said, well, I'm sorry you don't live in Cincinnati because I got an expert. You got to find the right guy to fix that problem. If you do have mold, there are things we can do medically to pull it out. There are binders, and we're not here to talk about that today. But there are things that I can give you to pull endotoxins out of your system. But the number one rule, if you go look up Richie Shoemaker's work, he's a doctor who's known for his work in the area of mold. The number one rule is get away from the mold, right? Yep. So if you ever said, oh, I went on vacation for 2 weeks and I felt awesome, and then I came home and felt like crap again, yep. You probably have mold at home, and when you went away from it, you felt better, and when you came home and breathed it in, you were sick again. That's a common symptom. Yep. So it's a very common occurrence. Like I said, 50% of all the structures in America, they estimate, have had water damage or have some risk of mold engagement. And so just don't be one of those people that has it and doesn't identify it, all right? I think I'm out of information. I know you've got more to share, but Chris, are there any questions that we want to hit?
Absolutely. So, as regarding mold specifically, does everybody react the same, whether it be the elderly, a 30-year-old, or a 10-year-old?
Okay. Let me take that.
Yeah, sure.
So it can be very different in different people. We'll have a husband and wife in the same home, and she's sick and he's not. There's a gene about 24% of the population have. If you have this specific gene, it's an HLA gene. It means your immune system can't see the endotoxin. So Chuck and I both walk into a moldy building. Let's say I have that bad gene. We both feel crappy. We both get a headache. But we leave the building, and he just exhales and gets rid of the endotoxin because his immune system can do that. If I have that HLA gene, my immune system can't see the endotoxin, so over time it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And so I become mold toxic. And even if I can get some of it out and I feel better, if I go to a moldy hotel or a moldy room, I get sick easy and often, all right? So yes, you need to check for that gene to see if you're mold susceptible. Do all kids react the same? These endotoxins are immune modulators. They will weaken your immune system and cause all kind of bizarre symptoms. And so depending on the status of your immune system, depending on how healthy your gut is, how healthy your diet is, and do you have a strong immune system to begin with, or have you done things or have issues like allergens that have already altered or weakened your immune response? That can be another element that elevates your adverse reaction to mold. So there can be a great difference. Old versus young, again, we're just talking about immune issue. Young kids, 1, 2, 3 years of age, their immune system isn't mature.
Correct.
So they're going to be more reactive. You have got to show that picture. Chris, you got to put up that picture of the tub toys, the kitty tub toys. Yeah. Talk to that. So to finish my point, if you're young or old or immune compromised, you can have an adverse reaction. Tell them about the tub toys.
Yeah, I actually came across this on the internet, and it's sort of dawned on me to where moisture is the big cause of mold. The toys itself, moisture gets inside, they actually cut them open, full of mold. I do not know what type, but again, it's something you just don't want your kid chewing on in the first place.
You got pictures. Chris is going to put them up, but these are like little rubber duckies, and you cut them in half, and you think my kid's sucking on this and chewing on this and playing with this, and that far away on the inside of that thing is just nastiness. Yeah. So again, it can be there. And is that the reason your kid has colic? Is that the reason your kid doesn't sleep well? We don't know, but it can be out there. Okay.
Once again, it's like one thing. When I deal with air quality, you could have a little bit here, a little bit there, creating one air quality issue. Yeah. It might just not be one small area of mold that you have.
Right.
So that's one thing you have to keep in mind as well. All
right. Chris?
Remedies. What is something you can do to solve the problem without coming to see you?
When treating the human bodies, we will put people on binders and different things like chlorella or charcoal. Cholestyramine is a common one. So there are different things that we'll use to pull the toxins out of you. But another question that I often hear is, well, how do I remedy my home? Can I treat it myself, or do I need to call in a company to do that? That's where you can be really helpful because you're going to give them guidance on if you think they can manage that themselves.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
You're going to
Most
tell
definitely.
them.
And that's a lot of phone calls that I do get because I do ask a lot of questions, and so a lot of times they just send me pictures, and I can pretty much walk them through. If it's something that does raise concern, then I have to get some eyeballs on it.
You do something that I can't even believe. If somebody just emails you out of the blue with a picture, you'll engage with them and tell them what you think.
Definitely.
No charge.
Most definitely.
It's a good guy. So if I have a question, I have a corner in my home and I don't know, I can contact you, email you that picture, and you'll at least give some insight. Do you think it's a problem or not a problem?
Most definitely.
All right.
Most definitely.
Great guy. Good guy. All right, Chris.
Great question. I'm out of questions.
You're out of questions.
But,
Out of questions.
I'm still thinking, and thankfully it's not live.
Okay. There was a third one on that card, I thought.
Yeah, you covered it.
Oh, okay. All
You
right.
covered it, which
Cool.
was immune system in kids.
Gotcha.
And we touch base on the cost that usually because I always get what's the average cost doing remediation in a home. We sort of touch base on
Let's
that
hit that.
too.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Again, if you're watching this and you're concerned, if you have any pictures, send them to Chuck. Get an idea. If you have any question at all, give his office a call and get him in your home for $89 and get an inspection. See what you're dealing with. Get a dehumidifier in your basement. Get a $10 hygrometer and get your hydration, the humidity in your house. I say below 50. Chuck would say below 60, but I'm overbearing.
Yeah.
These are action steps you can take. But what if they need remediation? Give them an idea, because people are nervous that people that don't know what they are doing are going to come into their house, and we feel like we don't have control and we're going to get taken.
Correct.
What does it cost to remediate my problems? It can be a broad spectrum.
A wide spectrum, depending on the extent of the damage. That's why I'm always big on third-party testing firms. There's a couple companies out there that do some great work. I'm just not saying I'm the only one out there doing it. The one thing I do stress with a third party, make sure you have contact with the laboratory that they send it to. There is information. They should send you their report, plus what the laboratory actually sends them. Remediation-wise, get estimates. Get as many estimates as possible. The way I do mine with my clients, I have 3 companies that know what I expect. I'm the strictest hygienist on the planet. They'll be the first ones to tell you.
And you come back and check their work.
Yes, most definitely. It's to the point that actually the companies will hire me to come in as a consult to make sure they pass the post-test.
Okay.
Third-party testing firms, you have to make sure that they are able to go through a thorough inspection to where they first had to pass the visual. No visible signs of mold, no dust or debris.
Yeah.
Make sure that their remediation company, what they charge you for, is getting done. A lot of times they're going to charge you for HEPA vacuuming the whole square footage of the house.
Wow.
Through the visual, they miss a lot of areas, but you're paying for them to clean it.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I definitely make sure.
Okay.
The background that I have in it is through the remediation world.
Okay.
Remediation companies itself, get as many estimates. Have them all there at the same time. Let them all look at each other.
Let them know they're being competed with.
Definitely.
Okay.
There is an industry standard. It's called the IICRC S520.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows
Everybody
that.
remember that
Yeah,
off the top of their
IRC.
head. Let's say it again.
20.
IICRC S520. That is industry standard protocol. It's going to give you negative pressure containment.
That's how they do the work
Exactly.
they do. Yeah.
And then it gets down into the great detail. A lot of the estimates are confusing. Again, that is something all of my
I
clients
find the
send to me.
reporting confusing.
Yes. But that's where we come through, explain, and talk to. You told me a couple times with the reports that sent
Don't
out
send
through
me
it. Don't
20
send
pages.
it out there.
Send me one
I
page.
simplified it. I simplified it to where it's just plain and simple, black and white.
Yeah.
I'm not a big scientific guy. I don't throw out the big $1.50 words to let everybody show how smart I am, because I'm not. But I know mold. So again, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Bottom line is common sense.
Okay.
Estimates, as many estimates as possible.
Yep.
Get the price, because there's no guidelines on pricing. You'll get one for $1,000 all the way up to $10,000, $20,000 doing the same work. That's why it's important.
And that's
to have
where, you know
third-party.
what, I don't want to filter through that. I don't want to have to navigate those waters, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And that's why I like having you as a quarterback over the process to say, this sounds reasonable. Yes, I've seen 1,000 projects and this one seems like it's on target.
Correct.
That's where I draw a comfort level, having you involved in any kind of a mold project.
Right. That is one of the special things about my company. Again, it's me.
That's you.
Yeah, it's me. But that's what I pinpoint. I look at the estimates, make sure the industry standard is being followed, make sure
Okay.
they're going to do the steps all
Cool.
the way through.
All right. Well, man, it's been an honor having you here.
Awesome.
I
Great.
hope
Thank
we
you.
get a lot of good information out there that people feel like they have tools and you can defend yourself and educate yourself about what mold is and isn't.
Yes.
And hopefully you're able to reach out and help some folks clean up their environment. It makes a big difference. I know it's made a big difference for us and for my son and for my family. So I appreciate everything you've done for me and for my patients. I'm truly a fan. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, send them in. We'll answer them post-production, whatever that means. Right, Chris? All right. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.